Okay, so I've started to make a seat cover for the Sterling kit car. As you guys know, it came with fiberglass seats. So what I've done so far is I've made a pattern for the seat. I just made a pattern that just kind of fits in there real quick. Give you a ballpark of what it looks like. So there's a pattern here, and then there's one for the bottom. So kind of just sits in there like this. Oops, like this. So I've made it basically out of kind of material that's a little thicker than paper. I don't really know what they call it. It's anyway, it's paper. So I've made the pattern, and now I'm transferring the pattern. I've cut it out so that they're all individual, and I'm going to show you a sketch of what I've made. This is the design I came up for the seats. They're going to look like that. This is going to be a driver's seat, passenger seat. Have a nice little wave to them. And I don't know if I'm going to keep these seats in, but I have the ability to make seats, so I figured I'd just do it. So as I said, I've made the pattern so far. Now what I've done is I've drawn all this out. I've cut these out. Now I'm going to add 3/4 of an inch on each side so that I have some seam allowance. From there I'm going to foam them, stitch them, and then stitch them together. So should see how it comes out. So now I've transferred the patterns onto paper, and I've cut them out. Now I've just got to lay them down on the individual materials, and like I said, I'm going to add 3/4 of an inch of a seam allowance on it just so I can sew them in right. So that's the next step. Like I said, made the pattern, cut it out, and now that was where the seat was whole. Now I'm going to add the seat allowance all the way around the material. Okay, so I've added 3/4 of an inch. That's the one side. I flipped it over to make it a reverse side so that it was the opposite of what I had. And so when I cut it out, they should be opposite. Double check, make sure. Okay, so now I've cut out my fabric. I've laid it out on the floor. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut out my foam to glue to the back to that. So I traced it out onto the foam, and then I'll cut it out and glue it onto the back of the material and then sew it on. So now we have the fabric cut and all the foam cut as well. Got all the pieces just sitting here. Now what I'm going to have to do is glue them on the back and then stitch them around the outside, and then we'll stitch everything together. So now I'm doing the arduous task of sewing all the foam on. So the foam's been glued, and now you have to sew it all on. So it'll look like this when we're done, so that it's all sewn on. And I've done 3 pieces already, and it's 12:30 at night, and I have to sew all of those. So needless to say, I'm going to be up for a while. Okay, so I just kind of sewed up the bottom real quick, give you a little heads up on how it's going to look. This piece I made, but I made out of the wrong material because I assumed the fabric store is going to have the same stuff I used to make my buddy's tonneau cover for his Model A. But anyway, they didn't. So it's just a ballpark of how it's going to look. So this is the first section. And we got a lot more to go. So I'm at a stopping point for the night. Came downstairs to show my wife how far I've gotten, because she always likes to give me compliments and make me feel like I do nice stuff. So here it is. Center section's done. Dogs are walking by it. So that's it for the night. Try finishing it tomorrow. Okay, so I had to make some foam for this seat because this wasn't going to cover it. I don't know why anybody would have just this in the seat. It was folded over like that and just sitting in there like this, which looks like garbage. So anyway, I went to AC Moore and I got some foam cushions, and I basically trimmed them in, make them look like that. So glued them together, made it longer, and trimmed them in just so that they kind of fit. The material has to go down the sides, so you don't want to have it too long. But anyway, so that's the first one. I'm going to make a second one, and it should be pretty good. I stopped doing the sewing because I bent the needle and I couldn't actually put my machine in reverse. So I decided to do something different. So anyway, while I was doing it, I ran into a little problem where I actually sewed the bottom panel backwards, where I had the gray where the red was and the red where the gray was, and I couldn't figure out why exactly the seat wasn't fitting. When I do these, like I said, they'll be reversed, so the driver will be, it'll look something like that in the car. But anyway, broke the needle and I couldn't get one at any store, so I had to order it online, and I guess it'll be here on the 4th. So I figured, well, instead of waiting, I'll just start to do the seats and get the foam running. So that's why I did this. So I just laid up the seat just so I can see how it looks. So it'll look something like that when it's done. A little puffier, and it'll look pretty cool. Okay, so I'm working on the second seat, and this seat wasn't as good as condition as the other seat. One, he had holes all cut up in here because he had moved the brackets to the inside for no reason. But basically he had made some, I don't know, some pipe and some weird things. So what I did is I made a new section that's going to fit underneath here, and then the tracks are going to fit onto that. So I made both sides of that. I cleaned up the tracks so they actually work. And what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to fill fiberglass into the holes that have been ground around, just so I can get structure back in the seat and make it better. So that's where I am at this point. So then I'll go back to making the seat. Okay, so I just basically cut a couple pieces of fiberglass, cover the holes. You saw before that I had the tape underneath there. Drop some resin in, just wet out the mat, let it sit, then later on I'll flip it over and do it from the other side. Okay, so I wetted out the fiberglass. I'm going to let that sit, harden. I may shape it a little bit. I don't think I need to because the foam's going to be there. And then I'll flip it over and I'll make sure the bottom's done. Okay, so I've let the stuff lightly gel, and I pulled the tape off from the bottom. So you can see it, the tape kind of makes it have a form. Then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to drop one layer of fiberglass in the back once it fully cures. And I could do it now, but I'd rather just let it fully cure. So. Okay, now I've sanded out all the fiberglass. It's all straight. It's a little wet because I just wiped it down to get the dust off. But that's the bottom. That's the top. And the fiberglass portion is done. Okay, so I got the bottom of that seat all buttoned up. So now it matches this one. This is the one that came with the car. This is what I made. So it matches, so it looks pretty good. And I'm pretty happy with it. So onward, upward to the sewing. I sewed the upper part to the passenger seat. So that's that. Driver's seat. I'm going to sew the rest of it up probably tonight, or at least the center section. So we'll see what it looks like. Okay, so I started to fit the seat at the bottom. All done. The top, I mean, this is Velcroed in, so I can move this and play with it and do whatever, but as of right now, that's not too bad, so we'll see. Should be pretty good. And obviously I haven't done the sides yet, I haven't Velcroed them down, and I haven't made the top piece yet to close this all in, which will make everything look really good. So basically I have the seat just attached. I don't have that back piece made yet, because I don't have any foam, so I can't finish that, but all the sides are sealed down. And I don't think it looks too bad for a seat cover. So, show you when it's done. Point of reference. This is the seat cover that was on them. This is how it looked. That's the seat cover I made. So. I think mine looks a little bit more modern and a little bit more for that kit car. Okay, so I have basically both seats done. They're sitting on here. Obviously the foam or the material needs to lay out. Like that one seat's been out a little bit longer. I just finished this one, but that's how they look. Obviously, like I said, they're Velcroed in, so they can be removed around so that they fit a little better. Well, I'm going to let the material stretch out a little bit. I might throw some heat on it and then re-stretch it down all over the Velcro. So again, these aren't seats that are attached other than by Velcro, so they're basically a seat cover. So it should look pretty cool in the kit car. So hope you enjoyed it, and thanks for watching.